The majestic Bretonian countryside, a land of mystical energy, of moistened bent-slabbing scimitars, of knightly valor, and equality for all. Whoa! We're back on Warhammer 2. That means the Duke of Bordeleaux has some Dark Elf pirates to kick off his lawn. It just so happens to have the strongest cav unit in Mortal Empires. But there are demons about to be unleashed in the forests of Langui as Malus Darkblade and Zarkan, the Dark Elves of the Hag, come knocking. I actually really like this matchup. I think Brett's vs Dark Elves is really interesting because Bretonnia is built from the ground up for countering Elves, and the Druki, well, they're just really damn strong. Makes for a heavyweight matchup when they square off. So, for the Oriflamme, we're looking at a build with a lot of cav and flyers, which is typically how you want to build against the Dark Elves. Win the cav fight, win the air fight, run down the skirmishers, cycle charge their infantry into oblivion, and the Companions of Cunel are amazing at doing that. They can also kill monsters and cavalry exceptionally well. There's a Damsel with Earthblood and Regrowth, go figure. Knights of Bordeleaux up top, 2 Pegasus Knights, and the Duke himself with his Braid of Bordeleaux, +8 bonus for large in an AoE, and Heroic Killing Blow for dueling enemy lords and monsters. In the Vanguard, for the Dark Elves, Sinesh's Harvesters, Doomfire Warlocks, 3 Dark Riders with repeater crossbows, Malus Darkblade about to unleash Zarkan, his blood price, and essentially his combat buffs turn him into an absolute powerhouse when he gets into melee. And there's a really interesting spell here that we don't see that often that synergizes incredibly well with him. Occam's Mind Razor, plus 50% weapon damage and armor-piercing damage, can get Malus over 1,000 weapon strength when he's dueling someone like Alberic. That is going to be super scary. So the outcome of this matchup is typically predicated on mobility. Whoever has cav and monsters left over for the late game, typically going to have a pretty big advantage. You can avoid that, go for something like a Black Guard Corps, but most Dark Elf players like to skimp on the infantry and crack open some boys with the Cold Ones. That's happening here to an extent. There are some Cold Ones and Dark Rider repeater crossbows getting some good shots into the Grail Pilgrims, but the Blades of the Blood Queen are an interesting pick. Kind of overkill against most Brett foot troops, but if you're expecting a lot of foot squires, that is certainly one way to deal with them. And Spite wants blood. Bounding into action, the Cold One will crack open some boys indeed, and he is straight up bait right now. If Alberic and the Pegs decide to dive on him, Word of Pain, Soul Stealer, and the Ward Save for Malus will make that a very bad trade for Bretonnia, especially with all that armor-piercing focus fire for support as well. And the Death Hag on her Cauldron of Blood would also charge in there and probably pin them in place. So Bretts are not going to fall for that. They're going to let Malus beat up on the peasants for a little bit here. No big deal. Good focus fire coming in on the Executioners as the Death Hag rolls on through with that Pimp Chariot. Together, her and Malus are going to be able to blend that center pretty quick, but the Knights are charging in, and all across the line, they're going to get some good ones. The Knights of Cunel, the Companions, going to bust right through into the Dread Spears. Word of Pain will nullify most of their attack damage while the Executioners go to work. And the Blades of the Blood Queen, yeah, it's going to be a lopsided fight. Facing them down is not a way to get ahead in life. A little bit sad, too, because the Holy Pilgrims are great against Dread Spears and Bleak Swords that are the most common picks in this matchup. Tidal Wave from the Trident of Manon getting set up. Looks like it's about to drown some Executioners, sending them to a watery grave, and holy crap, it did a ton of damage. And Soul Stealer from the Doomfire Warlocks going right back, hitting all 3 flyers for Bretonnia. So a lot of punching and counter punching so far. Malus Darkblade is free from the Peasant Tide, and he's looking for a duel. Alberic de Bordeleaux, the Duke going in, Braid of Bordeleaux and Heroic Killing Blow pops, and then Occam's Mind Razor on Malus Darkblade, and with all his buffs active, over 1,000 weapon strength, and Jesus Christ, look at that damage. That was about 3 seconds, maybe 3 attacks, it might have just been 2. Alberic is shattered. He's just straight up done. He wants none of that action. He is off the field for good. Holy God. I've not seen that combo before, but the blood price, the combat buffs from Malus Darkblade and Occam's Mind Razor combined to make for just a world beater in duels. Oh my lord. And Alberic is no slouch on a Hippogriff, dude. He's got a lot of bonus versus large. He hits like a truck. He had Heroic Killing Blow popped, and he had no chance in that fight whatsoever. Insane. Pegasus Knights are now dealing with the Doomfire Warlocks in the rear. They're beating the crap out of each other, and you'd say, okay, well, the Brents just lost their lord. There's no way back for them, right? And Dark Elves are trying to put the nail in the coffin for them. Pit of Shades going down on the Peasant Bowmen, doing a lot of damage to them. But to be honest, they're stabilizing really well. For one, they have the hero still alive. The Damsel is going to do a good job of keeping their leadership in the fight. And of course, they have a lot of high leadership units, like the Companions of Kunel, who are straight up running over all this Dark Elf infantry. The Executioners aren't finished off yet, but they've taken a ton of damage in that initial engagement. And they're most certainly going to lose the Cav fight. They are not going to beat the Companions of Kunel with Cold One Knights, even if they do throw infantry into the meat grinder too. So far, the fighting out on the flanks has gone the Bretonians' way. The infantry fight has gone much better for the Dark Elves, of course. When you've got Hargoneth Executioners on the field, you expect to win in that area of the game. But with Alberic dead, that does mean that dealing with Malus is going to be a challenge. If you get a full surround on him with the Companions of Kunel, might be able to bring him down. But the Questing Knights and the rest of the cavalry, they're going to have to put in a lot of work here if they want to carry this game back. So far, doing a good job of it, but the Dark Elves are constantly debuffing them anytime they go into melee with that Word of Pain. Minus 40 melee attack is so strong. Dreadspear is going to try to close down the Companions, but they have no reason to take that fight, and they will retreat to a safe distance. So, for the Dark Elves, a lot of their mobility is gone now. They do have some Dark Rider repeater crossbows left, but they are all severely depleted after getting charged by cavalry, and the Hargoneth Executioners have finally bust through in the center and pushed back the Holy Pilgrims and the rest of the peasants. So, Bretonnia doesn't really have any infantry left over to speak of, and they do not want to be fighting Malus when his ward save and his combat buffs are procced. Because he's been slaying things left, right, and center this game. You don't want to get near him when he's got that word save up. Just let him degen his own health and then go fight something else. Companions are back in there. They're going to get a regrowth, and that's going to make them much more tanky in this fight. And this is probably the best way. This is probably the win condition for Bretonnia. If the Brets can keep them topped off and continue cycle charging, quickly eliminating the high-value threats, and then get us round off on Malus Darkblade, force him to pop Zarkan, then run away, they're probably going to be in really good shape. Both players showing a lot of patience right now, not overcommitting, not overextending, trying to get after cavalry they can't chase. They're going to try and hit the reset button on both sides, and I love battles like this. When you get that fierce initial clash, you just smack into each other hard, then back up and recommit somewhere else. And so the Brets are going to do what I think is the smart thing. They have Lore of Life. They aren't under a tremendous amount of pressure right now. There's not really any skirmish power that can be sent their way, minus a couple models of Dark Rider repeater crossbows left. So just retreat, maybe get an Earthblood that catches everything in your army, get healed up, and then commit when you are ready to get that full charge off, that full surround off. And that is probably how the Brets want to take this fight. They do have the cav advantage, obviously. They don't have a anvil, unfortunately, which is a problem. And this is actually a problem as well. The Knights are committing, the Damsel is committing, the Peasants are committing to Malus Darkblade, and that will set up a gorgeous Pit of Shades. I think the Bretonians are throwing too much in there, and again, this is bait. There's no reason to try to kill Malus here. He's half HP, he's not going to die very easily. Kind of throwing a little bit of good money after bad. I didn't like that engagement. I think he really should have just stepped back and avoided that fight when Malus charged in, because again, when he pops all his buffs, you're not going to be able to bring him down very easily. You're only going to have maybe 3 or 4 models hitting him at once, and then the Pit of Shades will hit you, and you lost a cav unit there for free. So the Knights of the Fleur-de-Lis are done. They're dusted. They're off the field, but the Companions are still in really good shape. And honestly, looking at what's left for both armies, I'd say Bretonnia probably has a slight advantage, but obviously Zarkan has not been unleashed yet, and he can quickly turn things back in your favor. Not just in terms of the balance bar, but in terms of overall killing power. That HP drain and that Bloodstorm, the explosion, can really decimate cavalry if they get blobbed up around him. So it's very tense right now, and this is what I love about Malus Darkblade's design. There's so many mind games you can employ when you're talking about unleashing Zarkan. You get him low, you throw him into the teeth of an enemy defense, say, here, come kill me, so people ignore him, and then if you don't ignore him, if you charge in with the Companions, then you're gonna unleash the demon, and from within, the Keeper of Secrets, the Greater Demon, whatever Zarkan is, will come out of the woodwork, and he's gonna start ripping people asunder. Bloodstorm pops immediately. Gonna get a bunch of kills on the Peasants that were still around. A lot of routing on the Bret line. But remember, Zarkan is quickly going to start degenning. He's quickly going to lose a ton of HP. And the companions, now that he's popped his abilities, now they can start feasting on Zarkan because they are amazing at killing armored cavalry. They're tin can openers, dude. So we're going to get the HP drain going down. That will give some health back to Zarkan. But the companions are getting that full surround off. They're hitting into the Death Hag. They're retreating right now. They're also getting some good focus fire coming in from the Peasant Bowman too. And the Death Hag just routed off as Zarkan gives chase. And already you can see it swinging back a little bit towards the Brett's favor. Zarkan started out super strong, got a bunch of kills, but he's losing a bunch of his health and quick too. The Bretts are going to play keep away if they can, but Zarkan's rolling through. Spite is feasting, and a lot of kills going the way of the Dark Elves, but they don't have much left. Bretts don't have much left either. And the steroid buffing for Malus Darkblade this game has been impeccable. It's made him look like Bane. And when you see a Lord for the majority of a game get like 800 to 1,000 weapon strength, you're doing something right, and everyone who's trying to duel him wants to just run away, is pretty much how it goes. And it's been huge this game. The Occam's Mind Razor, the Gaze of Cain from the Death Hag, and obviously the Deadly Onslaught and Blood Spite, all that stuff. I mean, combine it together, it just makes for an absolute monster, a blender lord. Yet still, the Bretonians have stayed the course, and they are still in a position to potentially take this game. Companions are still on the field, still running down infantry, and they're playing keep away from Malus Darkblade and Zarkan. The Drinker of Worlds is looking for something to slay. He's not going to be in this world for very much longer, and they're going to commit. But that's where the HP drain kicks in. That is where the Bloodstorm is going to be a huge deal for the companions. They're going to drop like crazy, and I think that is going to be the end of the game. Zarkan carries it, but not by much. Mass rout incoming, one more attack into the rear of the damsel should seal it, and that is going to be your battle. Super close. Look at what we have left. Zarkan just a handful of HP left, and I guess a couple of Bleak Swords. That was pretty much it. Really fun. Really well played to both players. Croissant Albert. Really cool build, and honestly, you got a little bit unlucky with how fast Alberic dropped there. But when you're talking about Malus Darkblade with 100 plus melee attack and 1,000 weapon strength, can Archaon even get 1,000 weapon strength with Slayer of Kings and Flaming Sword of Ruin and all those buffs? He doesn't have Deadly Onslaught, I don't think. I don't think he can make it to 1,000. I'm not sure any Lord in the game, any faction in the game can stack buffs quite like that in multiplayer. In campaign, obviously, you get the Sword of Cain or whatever. But here, I've never seen anything like it before. Occam's Mind Razor might just be the way to have Malus Darkblade take on anything in the game and win. We knew he was scary. We knew Zarkan was scary, but god dang, that's crazy. 100 kills for him too. So if Alberic had been able to survive that, get back up into the air, get a regrowth going his way, there's a very good chance the Bretts managed to take that game. Pegasus Knights didn't have a great time, but the Companions of Connell certainly did. 131. A lot of that was on Cold One Knights, and some of it was on Executioners too. So they definitely pulled their weight, and they almost always will. Super good. Executioners for the Dark Elves were powerful, and the casting from that Shadows Sorcerer definitely made a huge impact for the Dark Elves.